What's up, YouTube? Hope you guys are all doing well. So as you guys can see, well, I don't know if you can see, but we are back in Florida after our 3-day bender. But yeah, we're back in Florida. So today we're going to be at the Seminole Casino Coconut Creek down here in South Florida. So we're going to mix it up, maybe play some 5-10, maybe some 2-5, definitely. And yeah, see what happens, mix it up, and I'll see you guys in the casino. In a little bit, I'm gonna go work out, and then I'll see you guys in the casino. Peace. We hop into the game for $1,000, which is the max down here at the Coconut Creek. And the first hand we get involved in, literally the first hand, is Ace-Jack offsuit. We're under the gun, the button, there's a straddle, and the big blind decides to call. With Ace-Jack, definitely want to be narrowing out the field, and I'm pretty deep, so I go ahead and raise it up to $50, trying to play this hand in position, which is what happens as the big blind just elects on a flat call. So the plan's going as it's supposed to. All we need now is a good flop, and boom, that is exactly what we get as we go ahead and flop trips with the nut kicker. The only hands we're losing to is pocket kings and king jack, but I'm definitely not worried about that. And I'm also especially not worried about that because as the action is now on me when he checks it to me, he asks if I want to just slow down and chop it up because he said that this was his last hand, which is pretty indicative of a weaker hand or maybe like some weak king. So with that being said, I definitely want to go for some value, so I threw out $50, hoping that he calls, in which he does. So at this point, I'm almost always putting him on some sort of middling pocket pair or a king. If he had a jack, obviously he wouldn't ask to chop. So now the turn here is a queen, which doesn't really change much of anything. If he had queen jack, once again, he would not be saying that on the flop. So when he checks in me, I definitely want to go for some more value, planning on just jamming the river. I throw out $125, leaving him with around $175 for the river bet if he makes this call. So giving him a good price on the river. But luckily he just jams it all in for me right now for $300 total. I snap it off knowing I have the best hand here almost always. And that is the case as he has king 6 of clubs. So our read on the situation was almost spot on. We fade the 3 outer on the river, so the pot is going to be pushed towards us first hand of the night. So we're starting off with a pretty healthy stack up around $400 within literally the first hand of the night. It's safe to say that things are looking up early on in the session. Hopefully we can build up this stack to something pretty enormous. It doesn't take us too long to get involved in the next hand when we look down at 2 5s. I'm in the under the gun position and there's a button straddle. The blinds go ahead and get out of the way, so action's on me. With these smaller pocket pairs, when it folds to me, I normally like to open up the action, so I figured there's no reason not to in this hand either. So I open up to $35 and it folds back around to the button. Looks like the button's here to mix it up as he pretty quickly makes a call. So we're going heads up to a flop, out of position with a pretty weak pair. I'm pretty sure we have the best hand pre-flop, but hopefully we can have the best hand on the flop. But it doesn't look that promising as the flop comes down jack 9-3. So we don't really have much of anything besides a pair of 5s and a backdoor flush draw. Action does start on me and I still think I want to be putting in a bet here. I think if I check, my hand's pretty face up. So I throw out $30 and it doesn't really matter as he quickly does make the call. So now we're headed off to a turn which is a queen. So obviously it doesn't improve our exact holding, but if he had a jack now, he's going to be put in a more of a miserable spot now that there's an overcard on the board. But at the same time, if he has a hand like jack 10, he's not going anywhere with the bet because now he is open-ended. But at the same time, I still think I'm behind, so I'm going to throw out a bet of $100 to try to apply some pressure. There's a small chance we could be ahead if he has some sort of flush draw, but it's kind of hard to know when he quickly makes the call. So at this point, I am pretty much done with the hand unless we have a good card to blast on the river, which is exactly what we get. We get an ace of spades. This card is so much better for my range than it is his with the pre-flop action, but at the same time, if he did have a hand like a ace-high flush draw that now river top pair, I think he's going to call a bet regardless, but once again, if he does have like a busted flush draw or a jack, he's going to be put in a pretty miserable spot with a bet once again. So I throw out $175, obviously hoping for a fold, and he goes well into the tank for around a minute and a half. So at this point, I'm kind of just staring down the board, doing my thing, not giving him any information, and unfortunately, just kidding. Fortunately, he folds, which was definitely the best hand on the river because he took so long to make his decision. So we happily scoop in another pot, and things are going well this session so far. We quickly get involved in the action right after that previous hand when the low jack opens up to 25. Almost the whole table makes the call, so there's 4 people in the pot, and I decide to defend, getting a pretty decent price with a hand that's a bit suspicious. When you play 9-6 of hearts, this is probably the best board you could ask for. I still check it to the initial aggressor, in which he checks to the button. The button throws out $25, and the small blind quickly makes the call. So action's on me, and obviously we're not going anywhere. But I think the better play, instead of just flat calling, is actually raising. So the button, he only has around $150 behind, and I think I'd want to just isolate and get it all in with him now. And obviously, with this raise, we also have some fold equity, so I bump it up to $175, hoping that it folds back around to the button, which is exactly what happens, and I would not hate a fold from the button himself. But he does not think for too long, and he does elect that his chips are going in the middle as well for a total of $180. So I unintentionally did not put them all in. He still had $5 behind, hoping that the small blind doesn't do anything weird, in which he does get out of the way, thankfully, and at this point, obviously not folding for $5. So we're off to see a few cards, getting a decent price with all the dead money in the middle. So 510 in the middle with a flush draw and nothing but a flush draw. The turn comes a 6, so now at least we have a pair, but the river is a queen of hearts. So we hit our flush, and to my surprise, the button had pocket queens. So I'm surprised he didn't repop it pre-flop, but regardless, I'm definitely happy to take it down. A big card dead for some time until we look down at 6-7 of clubs. There's 2 limps to me, and I'm on the cutoff, and this is one of my favorite hands to play, especially in position, so let's play it in position. I bump it up to $30. The button folds, so once again, we are playing it in position, and both the limpers call. As I figured they would, they have been playing a lot of hands tonight, so they could have a bunch of anything. The flop comes down King 4-3 Rainbow, so we do not hit much of anything. Action does checks to me, and I think I should be betting here, but this time I checked to try to realize some equity, which is realized when the ace of clubs comes. So now we have a flush draw to go along with our gutter. 7 high is not going to win it, so with a card great for a range, I throw out a pot-sized bet of $100. I could definitely play a naked ace this way, so this line does make a lot of sense, and it looks like the players believe me, as they both let our cards go. So winning with 7 high is always a good outcome when the chips come your way. I asked the floor if they had a stool because I can barely see over my monstrous chip stack, and hopefully we can get it even bigger when we look down at Ace-King offsuit. I'm in the +1 position, and the under the gun player opens up the action at $10. Once again, guys, we need to try to play hands in position, so let's raise it up and try to make that come true. So we raise it up to $40, which looks pretty strong after raising the initial opener, which is from the under the gun position. So he does make the call, and we're going heads up to a flop, which comes Ace-King 3, so we absolutely smash it. He checks it to me, and I'm really not scared of a single thing on this board, so I throw out $15, keeping all his holdings in, and he does make the call quickly. The turn is a 6 of hearts, so a very safe card. He checks it to me, and no need to size up too big. He has around $200 behind, so I'm trying to find out a sizing to get all the money in either now or on the river. I looked at a sizing of $55, planning on going with it on the river, but once again, my opponent does it for me. I snap it off, and I just quickly table my hand because I know I'm ahead all the time. And the river is a brick. It's a 4, and yeah, he looks pretty disappointed, which is a great sign, and he lets his cards go. I apologize, guys. I know some of y'all like to see the opponent's cards, but yeah, I was just a bit excited on this one. With $2,100 on our stack, we look down at pocket 5s, and we see an early position raised at $20. I like to make the call, and I actually think this is a flaw in my game at the moment. My calling range pre-flop almost always consists of weaker pocket pairs, and obviously it's no different in this one. So the flop comes down 6, 7, 8. So we have an open-ended straight draw, and we also have a pair of 5s. The early position player quickly throws out $35 and actions down me. I don't think there's any other play than just calling, so that's what I do, and we go heads up to a turn still, which comes a deuce of clubs, an absolute brick. Hoping that he slows down a decent percentage of the time, but this time he does not. He throws out $65. At this point, I think he could be doing this with a lot of 9x. He might even have an overpair, but we were just talking, and it seemed like he wanted to get involved on the vlog, so at the moment, I'm not quite believing him yet, so I like to make the call once again, and we're off to see a river, which is a queen of spades, so I don't think it changes a whole lot. This time, obviously, I'm praying that he slows down, which is what he does. Actually, he elects to check it, which I am super grateful for. For a brief moment, I think about potentially turning my hand into a bluff, but I think we do have just enough showdown to check this and see what we're up against. So I happily just check it back, and we're up against 7-4 of spades, so that is a holding that I definitely wasn't expecting, but yeah, this just proves that he is definitely trying to make the vlog. Nice hand. In this next hand, we are on the button, which is great, but we look down at probably one of my least favorite hands in this game of No Limit Texas Hold'em. The cutoff limps, and as much as I hate it, I think this is a hand that I want to try to isolate with, so I bumped it up to $30, but the plan goes out the window as the big blind just for some reason just has to tag along, and the cutoff is getting a decent price, and he calls as well. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, which comes 6-6-3 rainbow. So a pretty depressing board, and action checks to me. This is a spot that I think I could check with most likely the best hand at the moment, but I take the aggressive route and throw out $40 to potentially just realize some equity, but also maybe protect my ace high. Well, it looks like that doesn't really matter as both players make the call. So we're off to see a turn, which is another 3, which is a interesting card actually, because now we have 2 pair with a ace high kicker. I think both of these players would have raised an overpair on the flop. A 6 definitely, and then a 3 most likely. So when action checks to me once again, I want to try to avoid any chops or fold out any better hands. So I throw out $150. In hindsight, if I was playing up against myself, I know that this line doesn't make much sense for me because I can almost never have a 6 or 3 here. But I don't think these players know that, and they both do let it go. Happy to win with a hand that I normally lose with.
I should lose.
Let's try to keep the momentum going when we look down at 2 10s. There's a button straddle, and we are in the small blind. Action starts off with me, and I raise it up to $30, but that bet doesn't get too far as a short stack and the low jack jams all in for $75. It folds to the cutoff, and he actually just cold calls that $75 bet. The button folds, and action's down me. So we have one of 2 options here. Obviously, I'm not folding for $35 more, but we could re-isolate, which I think is the better play, just to try to get it all in versus the low jack. But in the moment, for some reason, I just elect that flat calling was the best play to try to realize some equity on the flop. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, technically 2 ways because one of the players is all in with a dry side pot at the moment, which comes down jack high with 2 hearts. So we have a middle pair with a backdoor flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. Action starts with me, and with a dry side pot, I like to just check to realize some equity, and he checks it back. So I'm feeling pretty confident about my 10s, and definitely feeling confident when the turn peels a 10. This is a great card because obviously we have a set, but now it's a 3-liner, so any queen or any 8's definitely going to call a bet. I throw out $75, and he does, in fact, make the call. Praying to see a clean river because there's a lot of cards that we definitely do not want to see, particularly any heart, any queen, or any 7, but the 7 of hearts comes, which is probably one of the worst cards in the deck. I still think I can get a little bit of value, so I throw out $100, and he quickly calls. I table the 10s, and we are good versus the cutoff player, but to my surprise, the low jack player has pocket 8s. Definitely a hand I wasn't expecting, but that 10, it looked very good, but I also gave him a crap ton more outs in which he did hit them on the river. But luckily for me, I decided to go for some thin value in the river, and that allowed us to actually break even on this hand or profit a little bit. So definitely we'll take that for the last hand of the night. That's a good one to end on. I cash out, and it's time to hit the cage. Yeah, that salmon was pretty good. Anyways, guys, we were out of the session tonight. We were in the game for $1,000. We were out of the game for $2,090. So a profit of $1,090, which in 3 hours is pretty good if you ask me. No hard spots really tonight. The only spot I can think of that was a bit, difficult to navigate was the 6-9 of hearts hand. I just decided to just gamble with it on the flop versus the shorter stack hand. Sure enough, luckily it went in our favor, but that hand and then the first hand, the ace-jack hand, those were the 2 real hands I can think of at the moment that were really eventful. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for watching. Appreciate you guys for sweating the action with me. Always appreciate it. Your likes and your comments and your messages do not go unnoticed. So I appreciate all you guys. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up button. It does take quite some time to make these videos, so it would be greatly appreciated. And subscribe if you want to, if you haven't already. That would also be greatly appreciated. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in once again, and I'll see you guys in the next one.